Think about the last time you texted your best friend something completely pointless. A meme, a random thought, nothing important at all. You did it anyway. You weren't checking in, you weren't asking for help, you were just staying close. It feels like a modern habit, something built for phones and group chats and endless free time. But the real answer is far stranger. That instinct is older than language itself, older than agriculture, older, in some form, than your own species. You assume friendship is a luxury, something humans invented once survival got easier, once there was time to spare. That assumption is wrong. For most of human history, having someone who wasn't family who chose to stay close to you anyway wasn't a luxury at all. It was survival equipment, just as essential as fire, just as essential as a spear. Picture a small band of early humans, maybe 30 people, moving across a dry grassland 100,000 years ago. Food is unpredictable. Predators are constant. Every single day carries risk. In a group this small, you cannot survive on family alone. Your parents can only do so much. Your siblings can only cover so much ground. At some point, you need someone outside your bloodline who will still share meat with you when your hunt fails, who will still warn you when danger is close, who chose you, not because blood required it, but because something else did. That something else is what we now call friendship. And anthropologists have spent decades trying to understand exactly how it worked. The researcher most associated with this question is Robin Dunbar, an evolutionary psychologist who spent years studying primate social groups before turning his attention to early humans. Dunbar noticed something curious. Primates that live in larger social groups tend to have larger brains, specifically larger neocortices, the part responsible for complex thinking. His conclusion was startling. Brains didn't get bigger mainly to help early humans hunt or build tools. Brains got bigger to help them manage relationships, tracking who owed who a favor, remembering who could be trusted, predicting who might betray you. That is a staggering amount of mental math. And your ancestors were doing it constantly, every single day, without writing anything down. Dunbar's research eventually produced what's now called Dunbar's number, the idea that humans can only maintain around 150 stable relationships at once. Not 150 best friends. 150 people whose names, faces, and social standing you can actually keep track of. Inside that circle exists a much smaller, much more intense layer, usually somewhere between 3 and 5 people. People you'd trust with your life. People who, if something went wrong, would show up without needing to be asked twice. That inner circle is what a best friend actually is, and it appears to be a human universal, not a modern convenience. But knowing the brain evolved for relationships doesn't tell you what those relationships actually looked like day to day. For that, researchers had to go looking somewhere unexpected, not in fossils. In living hunter-gatherer communities that still exist today, whose lifestyles closely resemble how humans lived for most of history. Anthropologists Kim Hill and Michael Gurven spent years studying groups like the Ache in Paraguay and the Hadza in Tanzania. What they found reshaped how scientists think about early human bonds. These communities practice something researchers call extensive food sharing, where meat from a hunt doesn't just go to your family. It gets distributed across the group, often to people who aren't blood relatives at all. On the surface, that looks generous, almost naive. Why give away food you worked hard to get? Here's the twist. It wasn't naive at all. It was strategy, just not the cold, calculated kind. Hunting is unpredictable. Some days you catch nothing. If food only flowed within families, an unlucky family could starve during a bad stretch, even while others nearby were eating well. But if food moved through networks of trusted non-relatives, through friends, the risk spread out. Your bad day was covered by someone else's good one. Their bad day would eventually be covered by yours. This is sometimes called a system of social insurance. Except no one wrote the policy. No one signed anything. It ran entirely on trust, memory, and reciprocity. Exactly the mental skills Dunbar argued the human brain evolved to handle. Friendship, in this light, wasn't emotional decoration on top of survival. It was survival's actual infrastructure. Does that mean ancient friendship was purely transactional? Purely about food and safety? Not quite. And this is where it gets more familiar than you might expect. Primatologist Frans de Waal, known for decades of research into chimpanzees and bonobos, our closest living relatives, documented something remarkable. Chimpanzees form long-term bonds with individuals who are not kin. They groom each other for hours, not because grooming has any nutritional value, but because it releases oxytocin, the same neurochemical tied to bonding and trust in humans. Chimpanzees also show something close to grief when a close companion dies. Something close to preference, choosing to sit beside specific individuals over and over, even when no immediate benefit is on the table. If our closest primate relatives show emotional attachment that goes beyond simple transaction, it's a strong signal that early humans did too. Friendship likely began as a survival mechanism, but somewhere along the way, it became something felt, not just something used. Now picture that ancient bond from the inside. You and one other person, walking beside each other across dry land. You've shared food when you didn't have to. You've warned each other of danger more than once. Over years, a pattern forms. Not a contract, a feeling. Comfort in their presence, unease in their absence. Neurochemically, that comfort is oxytocin binding in your brain, the exact same chemical response you get today from a hug, a shared laugh, a message from someone you trust. That's the strange part. The biology hasn't changed at all. Only the setting has. Which brings us back to that pointless text message. The meme sent for no reason. It isn't a modern habit layered on top of ancient instinct. It's the instinct itself, still running the same ancient code, just expressed through a screen instead of a shared fire. You're not randomly reaching out. You're doing exactly what your ancestors did around actual flames 100,000 years ago. Checking in, reinforcing the bond, making sure that if disaster struck tomorrow, someone outside your bloodline would still show up for you. Best friendship, then, isn't a soft, sentimental extra layered onto survival. It's one of the oldest survival tools your species ever developed, built into brain size, wired into brain chemistry, and tested for tens of thousands of years across some of the harshest environments humans ever lived through. So the next time you send something pointless to your best friend, know what you're actually doing. You're not wasting time. You're running a system that helped your ancestors survive ice ages, droughts, and famine. A system so old, so deeply wired, that it survived the invention of agriculture, cities, writing, and phones completely intact. You didn't invent that reason for texting. Your ancestors did. You're just the latest one still running the code,